Hi, I'm Victor, the main organizer of the Full Stack Flutter conference. On this channel we publish the best talks from the conference every week throughout the year, so make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out. I'm also the founder of ServerPod, so if you want to build your backend in Dart, make sure to check that out too. Majid Hajian is a passionate software architect and author of the FlutterEngineering.io book. He's a Google developer expert in Flutter and Dart and has hosted events like the FlutterVikings conference. He will be talking about integrating Flutter with gRPC. Let's dive in.
Hello and welcome to this session. Thank you for choosing my talk. Perhaps you are very wondering about gRPC in general and how you can leverage gRPC for your Dart backend and Flutter applications. That's where you are coming in a right place. I've been thinking about my talk, how to make it more practical. So therefore, I'm going to ignore all the theory behind gRPC. Just going to give you a quick brief introduction to the framework itself, and then we're going to go to the live coding together. In 20 minutes, we're going to code and see how you can use gRPC in your application. But before I start, let me just get to the definition. gRPC, in fact, is an open source RPC framework. So you may wonder what is RPC or remote procedure call. It's actually very simple. If I can take a look at the documentation on gRPC website, and what technically means is that you can tell one machine to tell another machine to do one thing. That's technically what it is. So that's what we call it gRPC. There are multiple benefits of using gRPC. I'm not going to get to theory, as I said. Let's get into our project and start coding together. I already have a folder ready. So usually we're going to have a server, which is a Dart server, and a client, which is our Flutter applications. I'm just going to go ahead and create both of them in my folder right now as a monorepo. All right, now I have created both my server and my client, which is a Flutter application. So what we're going to do right now, so typically when you are going to work with gRPC, there is a way that you need to serialize data, the structured data. And that's what we call it protocol buff. Protocol buff are actually, you can think about it as JSON or XML, but it's a smaller, faster way of, serializing the data. So I'm not going to talk about protobuf in theory again. I'm just going to show you how you can write your protobuf. So the protobuf are where we're going to write our interfaces or our contracts, which that can be then based on that file, generated Dart files, where you can use it in your Flutter and Dart server. Let's go ahead and create a package that contains our proto files. All right, now I have my package. I'm just going to go ahead under this package, create a new folder, Portos. That's where we're going to create our Porto files. So we're going to start with a to-do application, a typical example for any application. This is actually a good one because we're going to actually see how we can do the CRUD operation as well as the streaming of the data. We'll see. Bear with me. So you're gonna like the example. This is not a very typical example. So let's go ahead and write a to-do Porto. While you can go ahead and read about Porto files and the language, how you can write it, but I'm just going to give you in 2 minutes an instruction that you can learn about Portos. Very simple. First thing first is that you need to define your language or the syntax that you want to write for this language. And that's going to be my syntax Porto 3. Think about this Porto file as a JSON file. So how do you want to structure your data? So you want to create your message type first, right? You want to say my to-dos are going to have these fields. That's where you're going to think about message keyword. It's similar to like class. It's not exactly, but similar, right? It's a keyword like class. You're going to go and actually define your to-do here. And the syntax is going to be simple in this case. You can go ahead and define your type in the beginning. Let's say my type is going to be int32, and I'm going to give it a name equal to number. At this case is 1. This is typically mean my type of this field is going to be integer 32, and it's going to be named ID. And typically number 1 is just for ordering of the field, but it must be unique. So based on that, I'm just going to go and define the next one. And then I'm going to go and define the next one and the next one. And of course, so we can go ahead and do other things as well. There are other keywords that you can use for fields as well. For example, if you have labels and your label would have an array, you're going to have repeated as defining your array in this case. That's good. Now let's see how we can generate a Dart file from this Porto file. First, you need to install a package globally and activate it as name proto.plug. So I'm going to go to my package. Now I have access to another command in my command line, proto-c, where I can give it a path to where I want to generate the Dart code and give it the folder or the path of my Porto files. And in this case, I'm passing an asterisk here, which means take any Porto files and just generate a Dart code. But before doing that, we need to go and make sure that the path that we are giving for the output is valid. And if you don't have that directory, make sure you are creating that. And after running the command now, you can go back to the folder that you created for generated file, and you will see all the generated file in that folder. So, but there is one more thing that you need to do for your package. There are two more packages that you need to install for your package as dependencies: the gRPC and protobuf package. And that's it. Now, if you go back to the generated file, you would be able to see that everything is generated automatically and there is no compiling issue anymore. There's one more thing we need to do, and it's to exporting all of our generated file in this library in order to be able to access these files. So I'm just going to go back to my Porto file, the base file of my package, and export everything. Since I want to make it easier for all of my clients to use just one package to access everything, I can also export my gRPC package, which I need it also in the other clients and servers that I'm going to use for enabling or for establishing a connection with gRPC. So therefore, I'm just going to also export gRPC package. All right, now my package is ready. So what we have done so far is to create a package that is holding all of our contracts or messages, structured data. And as we go, we are adding more and more to this file. We're adding requests, response, and so on and so forth. And we're going to generate Dart file where these files are going to be exported from this library. And then we're going to go and use this library in all of our other packages that we're going to use these gRPC messages or the things that we have to share between our client and servers. And that's one of the things that we're going to do with the power of gRPC. So I'm going to go back now to my application, and to both my server and client, I'm going to add this package that we just created. Since for now we are going to use only this package locally, I'm just going to go and use it with a local reference. But in order to do that, you need to make sure that the publish to is always set to none. So let's quickly recap what we've done so far. We just had a package that contains all of our Porto files and then generated Dart code. And then we used the same Porto package, the package that we just used it for generated file in both server and the client. Now it's time to go ahead and create a server with gRPC. To create a server of gRPC, that's actually fairly simple in Dart. So you can go ahead now to the entry point of your server. In this case, in my server, under the bin folder, I have server.dart. So here is where is my main function. What I'm going to do here, I'm going to create a server. As you can see, the server is imported from the Porto library that I just created. That's, in fact, is imported from the gRPC library that I exported from my library. So if I click, you will see that it's coming from actually gRPC. All right, so now I have only one package to deal. So, and there is a create method that is going to create my server. So I need to pass other information to this server. For example, I need to say what kind of services I'm going to serve to everyone. So as of now, I do not have any other services. Bear with me. I'm just going to have an empty array. But next thing I want to do is I just need to make sure that the server is going to run on a specific port. Let's say I'm just going to await for my server to serve at port 8091. So I need to make a few changes here, make sure that my main function is asynchronous and returning a feature. Last thing I want to do is that I want to remove the server that I already had in this package. I don't need that anymore. And instead, I can just return server.port, for example, when it's going to running. So let's just change the print version as well. Let's say server listening on port, whatever it is. All right, now you need some type of service here. This is where everything is getting more exciting. Bear with me. So what we're going to do right now, we're going to actually define our service in Porto file. So I'm going to go back to my package. I'm going to open my to-do, and I'm going to define a service this time. Let's call this service to-do service. As you can see, Copilot is trying to help me here, which is very nice, but I'm not going to use that for all of these CRUD operation. As you can see, the service is going to define different operation that you want, different actions, different functionalities. I would like to have, for example, a CRUD operation. I'm going to go and actually create a CRUD operation. As you can see, I'm just saying this is going to be an RPC operation as named create. It will accept to do, and it actually returns to do. Now I can go ahead and define other methods as well. So I'm going to have read, update, and delete. Let's take a look at lists. This one is actually interesting. So you're going to actually define a list method here where, in fact, it's not going to accept anything. It's going to be empty. So you need to define your message even if it's empty. So I'm just going to go and say my message empty is in fact empty. So I'm going to go and actually return a list of to-dos. That's again where you need to define what you need to return. So I'm just going to say to-do list, and I'm going to go higher up and define a message that says to-do list, which in fact is going to be a repeated to-do, as you can see. I guess right now you're getting the point of writing these, Porto messages or syntax. It's fairly simple. You just need to think what you're gonna do, and you start defining them in this file. And once you're done with it, and that's where you need to get everything more exciting. So let me do one more thing before we move on, and that's about read. What if you don't want to actually pass a to-do here. You can just pass just an ID, let's say. You can say to-do by ID, let's say, and that's a request, right? I can go ahead and define this message too and say that's going to be only an ID. Let's do one more refinement here. Like, for example, now I have empty. My delete does not need to return anything. And let's do one more thing. There is a power in gRPC for streaming the data. And how you can do that? As simple as passing one keyword. So imagine you want to have a list of to-dos. In this case, you're not going to have any argument for that method, but it's going to return a stream of to-do. And the stream keyword is going to define that. This is as simple as that. You're going to just create your service in Portobello. But now, since we are touching this file, we need to go ahead and make sure we are generating again the Dart files. So I'm going to go and generate one more time. And this time, if I go back to generated file, I'm going to have one more file here, which is my to-do service. All right, so I need to make sure that all of these files are exported, go back to my library and export everything. Now that we have our server, we need to go ahead and define our to-do service. I'm just going to go and create a new file, to-do service, and define my class for to-do service. But this time, I can actually extend my service from the base. And I can import this from my library. Well, that's great. Now, as you can see, Copilot is trying to help me because we know what we need to do. We have created all of these methods and, well, everything is clear. So I'm just going to go and actually use Copilot in this case to save some time. Well, that's fantastic. Even the to-do stream that we just created, it's added here, and you see this is a type of a string. Now this is where you need to add your logic in your server. So that's fantastic, isn't it? So I'm going to go and actually to the read maybe method, and I'm going to just return a to-do in this case. Let's just quickly return something. Of course, in a real scenario, you're going to have a different, logic here, probably getting the data from database. But for now, we're going to just return as a hard-coded to-do. But what I want to tell you here is that you have access to the request in this function, where you can get the ID that you define. This to-do by ID request is what you have defined already, right? And now you see that you have even access to that ID. Let's get quickly into that again. So if I go back to the Portobello, this was where we defined our request. That's good. That's good. So now let's go ahead and also define a stream of data. Very quickly, the simplest thing I want to do, I just want to make sure that I'm returning a stream every 2 seconds. As simple as that. We're just going to go ahead and return a stream of IDs that is random ID, and we're just going to return it every 1 or 2 seconds. Now we have defined our server and created our server. One last thing we need to do, we need to make sure that in our services in the server, we are actually adding our service. All right, that's it. Let's go ahead and implement the logic for our clients. We already have installed the package that we had, and so everything should be okay right now. What we need to do first, we need to create an RPC client channel. Make sure that this is actually referring to the correct server address, which in this case is my local host and the port 8091. I'm going to also pass the channel credential in secure because I'm running on local servers and I'm not worried about anything at this point to add extra feature. Once you created your to-do service, you also create the to-do service client. That's where the client needs to get. And because you already now created an RPC client channel, you can pass this channel to your to-do service client. And then you're going to have something, what we call it in gRPC, stop. Technically, you can call from now on from that stop any function that you defined in that service. Let's go and take a look at that. Now I'm going to go and pass my client or stop to my main application. All right, let's now see what we can do here. We had a stream of list of to-dos. I'm going to use a stream builder in this case. Make it very simple, and if snapshot has data, I'm just going to go ahead and print it out with a list title. Notice one thing here is, like in my data, in my snapshot, I have an automatically type of what I'm going to receive here, which in this case is to do. I have description, done, and ID and labels. And that's because we already defined that in our Portal file and generated Dart code. I'm going to make sure when the to-do is not null. And if it's not null, I'm going to return a list of titles. Before I run my Flutter application, I need to run my server first. There you go. I'm going to go and run my Flutter application afterwards. All right. Now we are actually running our application and we're getting an error. That's on purpose. I told you that you need to make sure your path to your server is correct. And because we are running an emulator, in this case, I run an Android emulator and I'm using AVD. So I need to make sure that instead of localhost, I'm pathing the correct IP address corrected to this server. So now I'm going to change this and restart one more time my application. And voila, you see now you get a stream of to-dos every 2 seconds, as you can see on this application. If you're going to use actually now your gRPC connection in your macOS client, you're going to get another problem, error. So which I would like to give you a tip to fix this problem. Go ahead and open your macOS in Xcode and make sure that under signing and capabilities, the outgoing connection is also checked for your project. Now you can also run your client application in macOS. Let's recap quickly. So we covered 3 things in this talk. First, you could create a server with gRPC. That was simple. You could create a client with gRPC. Also very simple, and you could get access to all of the services that you are providing. You can define your messages and structure data and the services in Portal file and generate Dart code into an independent Dart package where you can use it in both server and client. I hope you enjoyed this session, and you can access to the source code in the link of description below.